This week we're celebrating the Passion Week that led up to the crucifixion, and I'd like for us to consider the miracles that Jesus performed while hanging on the cross. Good morning, this is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Monday. I know that while Jesus was hanging on the cross, he seemed helpless to those around him. We see that mocking crowd making fun of him as they said he claimed to be the Son of God. Even one of the criminals that was hanging beside him on his own cross jeered and said, "If you have all that power, why don't you come down from that cross and take us with you?" Their line recorded in Matthew 27 was, "He saved others, but himself he cannot save." But I would remind you today that even while hanging suspended between heaven and earth, he still had all the power of the universe had he chosen to use it to rescue himself. But he did not come down from that cross because that was his mission on this earth. It was to give himself as a ransom to pay for the sins of the whole world as our sacrifice. But I believe he was doing other things while he suffered there on the cross of Calvary. I believe, first of all, he reached out and placed his hand on the Son. In Matthew 27, verse 45, it says, "Now from the 6th hour until the 9th hour, there was darkness over all the land." We realize that the Jewish day actually began at 6 a.m. So the 6th hour would have been 12 o'clock noon. And of course, this would be the brightest and warmest part of the day from 12 to 3 o'clock. Now, up to that point, the sun had always followed its appointed schedule. Since creation, back in Genesis 1, when he said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let there be signs and seasons for days and years." It was even used for daily times and seasons and calendars back in those days. It was proven faithful to the fact that God had given us the sun, rising over 12,000 consecutive days up until this occurrence. You can plan your annual calendar on those 365 times that sun rises in the east. They even tell you the times of the daily sunrise and the sunset in almanacs or on the weather reports. So why was this day and this particular time so different than any other time in history? Well, first of all, he was displaying his power over every force of nature, whether greater force, what greater force is there than the sun, for that matter? Jesus had always calmed the winds for the storms whenever his disciples were out at sea. Why couldn't he also take care of the sun? Someone has said that when Jesus was born, he put a new star in the sky in order to lead the wise men. And whenever he died, he snuffed out the sun for some 3 hours. There was no sun shining. There was no moon reflecting. How do you think Pilate's wife felt during this time after she had warned him not to have anything to do with the murder of this Jesus of Nazareth, and now it's gone dark? The songwriter even says, "Well might the sun in darkness hide and shut his glories in when Christ, the mighty maker, died for man, the creature's sin." Amos chapter 8 and verse 9 prophesied, "And on that day, declared the Lord God, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight." So that is exactly what Christ did when he was leaving this world. I'm sure everyone noticed what happened that day. Paul even told King Agrippa later when he gave his testimony about Jesus Christ, he said, "None of this was done in a corner." This was definitely the work of Christ that day that everyone could notice. He reached out and he snuffed out the sun to declare the significance of his death on the cross and how it was going to change this world.